Every single year in the United States, roughly 6.5 million animals enter the shelter system. The brutal math? 6.5 million animals enter shelters, but only 3.2 million are adopted. Buried inside that intake is a preventable tragedy. 500,000 pets are surrendered simply because their owner died or became too sick to care for them. These aren't strays accustomed to fending for themselves. These are usually older companions who have spent their entire lives in a quiet, comfortable home. When abruptly dropped into a loud, high-stress concrete kennel, they often shut down entirely, making them incredibly difficult to place with a new family. Under the law, a pet is considered property. Without a documented plan before you pass away, your companion becomes just another misplaced asset, left to the mercy of an already overwhelmed system. Many people assume they have this covered because they once asked a friend, "Hey, if anything happens to me, you'll take the dog, right?" A passing conversation over coffee is not a plan. It has zero legal weight when an estate goes into probate. Fortunately, a real safety net doesn't automatically require hiring expensive lawyers or drafting 100-page legal documents. Pet protection actually exists on a 3-tier spectrum. Which tier you belong in depends entirely on 2 factors: the size of your bank account and the strength of your social network. Choosing your plan comes down to one question: do you trust the people in your life more than you trust a legally binding contract? Let's start with Tier 1, the informal agreement. This strategy relies entirely on having a prearranged, willing caregiver from your personal network. To make this work, you have to document your pet's life. You need to write down their exact feeding schedule, their medical history, their vet's contact info, and their behavioral quirks. The advantage of this approach is speed. Because you've prearranged the handoff, the physical transition of your pet happens immediately. You bypass probate court and completely avoid the legal red tape of the estate settling process. But that speed comes with a massive vulnerability. You have zero legal enforceability. People often try to solve this by leaving a chunk of cash to the caregiver in their standard will. They write, "I leave $10,000 to John to care for my cat." The problem is, once John gets that $10,000, there is absolutely no legal mechanism to force him to spend a single dime of it on the cat. He can take the money, drop the cat at a shelter, and buy a motorcycle. Tier 1 makes sense only if your pet's needs are simple, the costs are relatively low, and your trust in your chosen caregiver is absolute. If you need ironclad legal control over how your money is spent, you graduate to Tier 2, the statutory pet trust. A trust works by separating the power. You appoint a caregiver to handle the day-to-day feeding and walking. You appoint a separate trustee to hold and distribute the money. And you appoint an enforcer, someone whose sole job is to audit the caregiver and ensure the pet is actually thriving. This creates a strict fiduciary duty. The funds you leave behind are legally locked. They can only be accessed to directly benefit the animal. But drafting these trusts requires extreme precision. In one real-world case, a client wanted to fund a $1 million pet trust. He instructed his lawyer to leave whatever money was left over to the caregiver after the dogs eventually passed away. A senior partner immediately caught the flaw. By giving the caregiver the remainder of the trust, the owner was creating a $1 million incentive for the caregiver to prematurely euthanize the dogs. To eliminate this conflict of interest, the lawyers had to completely restructure the financial incentives. Instead of a lump sum, the caregiver receives a reasonable monthly stipend for their ongoing work, but no reliable social support to take the animal. This tier is also crucial for animals that are nearly impossible to place in standard homes. A bonded pack of 3 large dogs, feral cats, or pets with severe medical disabilities requiring lifelong hospice care. These specialized facilities offer a guarantee. They provide lifelong, home-like comfort and high-level medical care, entirely avoiding the traditional kennel environment. But the barrier to entry is massive. Securing a spot in a reputable perpetual care program requires an upfront endowment or a legally binding bequest, typically ranging anywhere from $25,000 to over $100,000 per animal. You can't just write them into your will and hope for the best. Owners must proactively register and apply with the facility years in advance to ensure there is physical space available when the time comes. Perpetual care is the ultimate fail-proof safety net. It guarantees your pet's comfort until the end. But the staggering cost makes it an exclusive solution that most average owners simply cannot afford. So, how do you practically choose between an informal agreement, a legal trust, or a full endowment? Let's map it out. The first filtering question: do you have a highly trusted caregiver? If yes, rely on Tier 1 informal agreements. If no, do you have substantial funds? With the money but no caregiver, utilize a Tier 2 statutory pet trust. Finally, for unadoptable animals with complex needs, your safest route is Tier 3 perpetual care. Matching the exact legal tool to your life scenario is the only way to avoid underprotecting your pet on one side or overpaying for unnecessary legal structures on the other. Your next steps depend on where you landed. If you are a practical family planner, stop relying on verbal promises. Sit down with your chosen caregiver today and put the exact care instructions in writing. If you're a resourced solo ager, your next step is to call an estate planning attorney and begin structuring your fiduciary team. And if you're a guardian of complexity, start researching institutional care facilities in your state and begin the application process now, before they reach capacity. But there is one universal, zero-cost step every single pet owner should take the minute this video ends. Print out an emergency pet care card, fill it out, and physically stick it to your refrigerator or put it in your wallet, where first responders will instantly see it. True pet protection doesn't require millions of dollars in the bank. It just requires writing down a plan today, before tomorrow makes the decision for you.